This video is about some good news we recently got, and that is YouTube has started to make some visible moves in the whole situation regarding comment spammers and scam bots. So basically, they made an announcement where they have made a couple changes to YouTube, and there's one in particular that I think is going to make a really big difference. Now, one actually they made a little while ago, but I don't think many people know this, so I definitely want to mention it, and that is when you ban a user on your channel, now it will retroactively delete all their comments. This was not the case before. If you selected to hide user from channel, all their previous comments would stay there, which did not help with spammers who would come and drop like 50 or 60 or even hundreds of comments. If you wanted to remove all the ones they left, you would have to go in one by one or use the spam program that I created. That's why I created it, because I was so tired of doing that. But fortunately, YouTube did make the change after much begging, where now if you do ban a user, it will retroactively delete all their comments, making it so much easier. And I don't think a lot of people know that, so definitely want to point that out. All right, now the next one is one of the three that they put in the announcement, and that is they added a feature to increase the strictness of the moderation filter that YouTube has built in. So you before could have YouTube try and guess which ones might be harmful comments or whatever, and then hold them for review. And there is now a additional setting you can do to increase the strictness, and it's experimental. And actually this feature has been around for like a while. I think it started to roll out like December of last year. I don't think a lot of people knew about this again, or maybe they improved it or it's coming out of beta and that's why they put it in this announcement. But that's another one that you want to use. I have had that enabled. It doesn't catch all the spammers. There are some that still get through somehow, but better than nothing. Okay, now the next change is pretty significant, and that is YouTube will no longer allow channels to hide their subscriber count. And there are some legitimate purposes for this. Maybe someone is a smaller channel and they post really good videos that get a lot of views, but people are not really as willing to subscribe to them if they think that, oh, this person only has 1,000 subscribers, something like that. You might hide the count. Well, that is not a thing anymore because a lot of spammers will hide their subscriber count and pretend to have some kind of number of subscribers. They'll put it in the username or something, and to try and trick people into pretending, again, to be the channel that they're commenting on. I guess if they had the subscriber count showing as 0 subscribers, then if someone went to that channel and saw that, they'd be like, wait, this isn't the real person. Whereas if it doesn't show any subscribers, they might think that the real person just hid their subscriber count, something like that. All right, now finally onto the big change that I think is long overdue, and that is YouTube is now going to limit the amount and type of special characters you can use in a username. So this is a big deal because so many scammers would use a bunch of Unicode characters in their username for many different purposes. Maybe they want to put that WhatsApp number, and you see these scammers putting WhatsApp numbers using all sorts of weird characters that are numbers, but not actual regular numbers. And this, I guess, gets around YouTube's filters that they have. They might also use special characters to impersonate the channel and use characters that look like the words, but don't, again, I guess to get around some kind of filters that YouTube has in the back end, or else they wouldn't be using them at all. The actual wording in the announcement says limiting the type and or frequency of special characters in channel names. So it might allow some, but maybe not more than a certain number, something like that. And says we're reducing the character set available when choosing a channel name, as some characters can be used to impersonate channels. For example, channels won't be able to update their names to something like YouTube, and you can see the characters they use here. This also hopefully will prevent people from using fake looking check marks to pretend to be verified. That's another thing they do a lot. And I actually wanted to test this out. So I went on my test Gmail account and tried to create a couple channels. And it was interesting because it seems like there are different restrictions in place. So for some characters that I would use, it wouldn't let me even click the create button. It would say invalid characters, and that seemed to be for just some. And other Unicode characters and emojis, it would let me add them into the username, but it would then take me to this next thing where it says, sorry, this name is restricted, try again. So it seems like, if I had to guess, there was some kind of restriction before on invalid characters, and maybe they're adding on top of that, but because it wasn't strict enough, and now this restricted message is because of some kind of additional system they have on the back end. And if I had to guess, also the reason they have this separate page is because they might be doing some kind of filtering that isn't based on just which characters you're using. So they might have some word filters going on as a check, because it might have all characters that are technically allowed, but then you might have a word in there that is spammy, then they might block that in the second stage of the checks. So it seems like there's two checks going on, and I think that's good. As for some examples, I tried a bunch of different emojis. Those seem to be restricted now, which is good, because a lot of times the spammers would use like pointing arrows to the spam number that you're supposed to contact. They would again also use like the check marks, stuff like that. So I think this is great. Hopefully this means that whatever system they are using on that back end, they can now update and keep up to date. And so spammers will have to, keep on their toes and continually adjust to this filter. And people might say, oh, this isn't going to change anything. Spammers are going to be able to get around it somehow. And yes, they're always going to be there. But the thing that I try to explain to people is, even though you're not going to be able to ever stop spammers 100%, the idea is if you keep removing their options, they're going to have to use more and more convoluted, bizarre ways to get around the filters, using more and more weird looking characters, which aren't even an option now, but stuff like that. And eventually it'll get to the point where what they have to do to get around the filters looks so bizarre and weird that it'll be very obvious to would-be victims. So yeah, they'll still be there, but they'll be so much less effective that hopefully it will get to the point where it won't be worth their time to even bother doing it, because it's so less effective. Really, in my opinion, the way to do it is not to try and prevent the spammers from existing. You kind of have to just get it to the point where they make their own decision where this is not worth it anymore. So at the very least, I think this is great, because YouTube has clearly started dedicating some real resources to fighting this problem. They're listening. I think that's good. It's, of course, gonna be a long process, but the fact that they're actually taking notice now is really, I think, all that most people ask. They're not asking for miracles, but it's like, can you just make an attempt is all. So I do have some high hopes. So if you enjoyed this video and want to keep watching, the next video I'd recommend is one where I went over a whole bunch of different types of YouTube scams, and more than just the ones I quickly mentioned in here. So that might be interesting to you and just to check out. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in that next video.